ambition, influence, power, bribery, scandals, lies. We do what we gotta do in order to become the best news provider in the city. Welcome to News Tower, a management simulation game where you manage your own newspaper business. In this game, we start with just a small office and a lot of ambition. Our mission is to grow our humble beginnings into the most influential newspaper in the bustling 1930s New York. Over the next in-game days, months, and years, we'll be making editorial decisions, managing our staff, expanding our connections, making shady deals, and uncovering the most sensational stories of the decade. Will we be able to become the city's top media mogul? Or do we become the last week's news? Let's get started and find out. The game starts with you receiving postcards and letters from your uncle, setting the story of the game. In this game, you step into the shoes of a budding media mogul in 1930s New York, following the footsteps of your family's legacy. This is also where you get to choose the name of your newspaper. I decided to name it the Prickly Post in order to become a cactus reference, one of the many references I will make in this video. After receiving all the heartfelt letters from your uncle, you embark on a journey to revive and manage your family's once renowned newspaper. Day 1 begins with us arriving at the Brooklyn office, meeting Eleanor talking to a police officer. Eleanor catches us up to speed. Apparently, debt collectors paid a visit, which is the cause for some of these destroyed furniture. She introduces us to our two remaining staff, Blazanov and Dennis. Blazanov here operates the telegraph station, which allows us to get some leads to some hot news. While Blazanov does his thing, Eleanor segues into the basic tutorial of the game. She tells us that we need to get news out every Sunday. In addition, she tells us to take note of blue boxes and arrows, which serve as tips and tutorials of the game. While getting acquainted with the basic controls, Blazanov established a line of communication to a source of some juicy news. We are then introduced to one of the main mechanics of the game. Every story that a telegrapher connects to can fall into one of the 7 main types of articles, namely crime, economy, entertainment, politics, society, and sports. Each reporter can only be assigned to 3 types. Dennis Brown here can be assigned to crime, economy, and society type of stories, which is perfect since the news here is an economy type. It will take a while before reporters can finish a story. While waiting, Eleanor comes back and introduces us to the next step in the production chain. We are tasked to remove the old typesetting desk and assembly table and replace them with new ones. Our journalist would send the report to the typesetter to arrange the text, while the assembler would assemble the block for printing. We then hire John Higgins to be our typesetter and Brad Coleman as our assembler. While waiting, we send Dennis again to report on a crime story that Blazanov discovered. The game introduces us to a fast-forward mechanic, kinda like an old videotape if we hold down the right button here. After the first article is finished, Eleanor introduces us to Bertha, the printer, which segues into the second major mechanic of the game. Here we arrange articles to have the best layout. We can see here the summary of our newspaper from the amount of copies we sell and our revenue. Multipliers and advertising would be tackled later, so keep that in mind. Finished articles need to be arranged into pages, and each tag on an article corresponds to the number of newspapers that would be sold. For example, bronze tags are simple stories that would only sell 1,000 copies each, while a juicy gold story would sell 3,000 copies. Bad stories would cause reduced sales and synergies, which we will get to later. For this first article, we would get $800. They made it so satisfying with the manual lever. Oh, that's satisfying. And seeing your newspaper get printed. The next week, our month rolls in. I don't get why the date shows Monday to Saturday, but the timeline goes by a month and not a week. I will interchange these terms from time to time, but I mean the same thing. The debt collectors came back and destroyed our beloved Bertha, so we have to clean up all the furniture they destroyed. With all the mess, we place a sweeping station and hire Roland Murphy to be our sweeper. While Murphy is hard at work, we add another floor since we seem to be getting cramped. We are then introduced to a brand new shiny printer. It has an input, output, and spaces for multiple pages which we can add later. It also has a conveyor belt for the paper so it can go through floors if need be. While that was happening, Dennis finished the report on the crime scene. The next story is a political one, but Dennis doesn't have any skills in that category. I decided to buy another telegrapher desk and a reporter desk to expand our team. We hired Tom Graham as our new telegrapher and Ronald Porter as our new journalist. We immediately send Ronald to finish the political story so we can turn it into an article we can use. By this time, we are also introduced to the accessories. Accessories are objects that you can place to buff a specific skill of an employee in a specific workstation. For example, this globe can add +1 to the telegrapher skill and +1 to society skill. We place them on the desk of our telegraphers and Dennis to buff his society skill. We send Dennis and Ronald to more stories while we fast forward till John and Brad finish assembling the articles for our printer. While we organize the articles for our newspaper, this is the perfect time to explain to you how synergies work. As you all know, articles that we make have their own tags. If we place articles with similar tags on the same page, we'll have a bonus to our sales. For example, our first article here, Cargo Ship Burned and Sank, has society and political tags, which will have a synergy on the eve of election article since both of them have a political tag. Each synergy will give a bonus of 1,000 copies to our sales, so we must organize and experiment layouts to have the best sales possible. Capitalism, am I right? After organizing, we print and sell a hefty amount of 7,000 newspapers, which is our best sale so far. It will only go up from here. Eleanor here then introduces us to the map of New York City and shows us how to expand our business to different areas. Every week, we can select one district to expand our business, and we need to print articles with the tags required by the district. Here, Williamsburg requests an article with at least a crime and sports tag, so we must find and print articles with those tags attached. The next week, with our business expanding, Eleanor then teaches us that we must not only take note of profits but also the comfort and welfare of our employees. Here we are introduced to the comfort view. This view mode shows us how comfortable areas in our office are. Green represents comfortable areas like this area with a plant and poster, while orange and yellow areas show uncomfortable environments. Nobody wants to work next to a huge, noisy, and oily industrial printer machines. Thus, we place walls, acoustic panels, fans, and even vents in order to counter these uncomfortable environments. After all these comfort management, we must go back and find articles that Williamsburg need. Since we need crime and sports tags specifically, we are taught that we can prioritize certain tags when searching stories. These buttons up here can be used to let our telegraphers know which type of stories should be prioritized. Since we need crime and sports, we press those buttons so there is a higher chance of those articles popping up. We send our journalists to multiple articles to gather stories for our weekly news, and while this is happening, John Higgins here became hungry. Apparently, people in this world need food, so we organized their office so that we can fit a water cooler, and apparently is enough to satisfy John. I guess he was just thirsty. After we gave them water, it was inevitable that somebody would need to go to the toilet, and perfect timing, Brad here needs to go. We build a toilet on the second floor for him, and we place a sink, mirror, fan, lights, a wall, and some wallpaper in order to counteract the smelly toilet. We fast forward to the end of the week to make our newspaper. We got our first negative tag here. This tag is called Old News, and this tag appears to news that were made in the previous week. Nobody wants to read old news, thus, there will be a deduction of 250 copies of sales when placing this article. We will try to avoid placing those in the future unless we really need those tags. Since we satisfied the tags that Williamsburg needed, we gained influence from them. Influence can be used for some upgrades later. With this, we expanded our territory and we happened to stumble upon the mafia. Aside from expanding to districts, we can take one secret mission from the mafia to gain even more influence. Kinda shady, but we take what we can. Secret missions like these give more rewards but are harder to achieve. For example, the mafia wants us to print a newspaper with no politics tag. This prevents us from an entire category from this week if we want to get their favor and influence. We take the mafia deal and decide to expand to East New York. However, East New York requires a tag that we have never seen, the alarming tag. Now this is the perfect time to explain the other possible tags. In this game, aside from the main tags, there will be other tags ranging from new bronze tags, red ones, to golden ones. In order to find these tags, we just hover over them to see how we find them. Some are simple, like alarming can be found with crime and economy, thus we just prioritize them. However, some tags are harder to find like this, where it can be found anywhere. So you just need to keep on searching and skipping articles that we don't need in order to find these tags before the week ends. The next month rolls in and Eleanor tells us that this will be the last time we hear from her in a while and leaves us with an amazing present. Another page module for a big printer. This allows us to have another page and more spaces to place for our articles. More pages means more money and we always need more. We add another floor and reorganize our big printer to fit everything. We move the printer to the third floor and move the wall, fan, and acoustic panel as well. We add the stairs and some lights so that we can use this area of the building. With a bigger printer, we would need more paper as well. We are tasked by Eleanor to order some paper, but those paper deliveries would not transport themselves. We buy a resupply desk and hired Frank Wright to be our transporter. Frank will now move all these deliveries from the front door to areas within the building. While Frank is doing his work, we find an article that has the alarming tag and we send Dennis to start reporting on it. Each story has their own possible gimmick, like this story has a crossroad, which makes us choose which story to proceed. Obviously, we send Dennis to the police station since we need that crime and alarming tag. Fast forward to the end of the week, we now lay out our newspaper and we now have 2 pages to work with. We place the missing child articles to the headline to get that 2 times buff to satisfy the needs of the East New York district. We placed the other crime article on the same page to get the buff and the old society article as well. The negative tags are worth it for the extra synergy. We place the rest of the articles on the second page and reprint, selling a whopping 13,450 newspapers, which is almost double our previous record. We satisfy both our guests from East New York and the mafia, gaining us more influence and money. Expanding to East New York gave us access to the police station. Here we can use our influence to gain access to furniture and accessories that can help build our office and employees to have more buffs and comfort. Before the next week starts, we take another mission from the mafia and decide to expand to Flatbush. The next day, I decide to utilize the empty space we have on the second floor. I move all the telegraphers to the second floor so I can make room for 2 more reporters on the ground floor. It will be easier for me to track my employees if they are located in a single area. I place 2 reporter desks and hire Clara Thompson and Chloe Abrams as our new journalists. This will allow our office to get more news in a shorter amount of time. We also place the magnifier book stand that we unlocked from the police station on the desk of Dennis and Clara, to buff their crime skill, and a globe to Chloe to buff her society skill. I also forgot to place a storage space for our deliveries so that they could be stored in the building rather than outside. While we search for more stories, breaking news appeared. These events randomly happen and they will always be on a timer. Successfully reporting on these types of stories give us buffs to the tag indicated at the bottom. We send our journalists to more stories to gather content for our newspaper. While that was happening, our toilet was getting dirty and we needed to hire a cleaner for it. However, we were low on cash and decided to get a loan of $1,000 to be able to afford to build a washing station and hire a cleaner. I then moved to the wall to make the washing station fit and hired Frances to be the cleaner. We get more articles and suddenly one of them has a weird symbol beside it. These symbols may appear on some articles and all it does is give the article a chance to inflict a punishment when you decide on taking up a story. In this case, it's a police fine. We sent Clara to the case and we were lucky enough to get away scot-free. Another article also shows up, but it is locked behind a paywall. Some juicy articles require you to bribe someone a random amount of money to access the story. Thus, we paid $300 and sent Dennis and got lucky enough to get away with no fine. Some articles also have these briefcases, after which means that we will get an item once we finish reporting on it. After Clara finished the report, we were able to get a crime board which buffs up our crime skills for our journalists. While that was happening, our water dispenser broke, and what would we do without water? But no worries, the game gave us a workbench so we bought it and hired Peter Wright to be our repairman. We get more articles and we end the week with a newspaper that finished all the objectives and sold 15,150 copies, which beats our previous news. With this, we were able to access the Industry City Harbor, which allowed us to buy another page module in the future. I used the influence to buy a world map instead, and a day planner to buff our telegraphers and typesetter. I took another mission from the Mafia and decided to expand on Wall Street. The next month rolls in, I decide to expand our story acquisition and add another telegraph station. We hired Mabel Smith as our new telegrapher. We rearranged some accessories and add all the new things that we bought. This is also where I realized that some accessories can affect multiple stations if they are in range of the work area. So instead of placing multiple world maps, I only placed one which encompasses all of these telegraphers. I also added the crime board and rearranged our journalists to make sure that the ones that do crime news are beside each other. This will be my feature layout wherein I focus one skill of 2 reporters and put them side by side to maximize the accessories. I had some extra money, so I decided to put some signs on my building to make it feel more organized and feel like a real office. I named the newsroom first and thought real hard about it. In the end, I decided on using cactus puns as my naming scheme and named it Needle Point Newsroom, because you know, needles, cactus, you know what I mean. Okay, these names won't get any better soon. While getting some news stories for our article, there was a story wherein no journalists were available. I decided to close it in order to wait for available journalists, and the game taught me another mechanic. Apparently, if you keep the line open, the telegraphers would not search for new stories. This means that no new stories would be found. You can close stories without researching them so that the line of the telegrapher would be open for new stories. This mechanic would be especially useful in the later parts of the game wherein there will be a lot of possible stories and you need to find a specific one. In this case, we wanted to find a mafia story for the mafia secret objective. So I decided to skip all stories to focus on finding the mafia story quickly, since the tag can appear anywhere and wanted to be finished quickly. After researching a few more stories, the game pointed me to the staff list, which gives me a summary on all of our staff and their status. The Wright brothers were not flying too well and were having a penalty due to uncomfortable environments. So I decided to place some plants and a lot of clocks to at least make them a bit more comfortable. By the end of the week, we organize our article, we make sure we get the Wall Street mission and the mafia story, and selling 12,200 copies, and gaining a lot of influence from our quests. We take another mission because, why not, and attempt to expand to Gravesend District. We get more accessories like the issue board and place it accordingly. Today is the usual routine of getting stories, getting away from cops, collecting accessories such as this boxing glove and placing them at optimal points. However, the routine ended when Dennis Brown angered some mobsters who were researching for a story. A mobster dropped by our office with a baseball bat intending to harm our beloved establishment. Good thing we have some influence left, and with the guidance of Eleanor, we buy a security booth from the police station, place it in our building, and hire John Fletcher as our security man. While the mobster was busy terrorizing our newsroom, John came up from behind him and threw him out of the building and off the screen like the proper security he is. And just like that, the week ends. We organize our news with our tags and crime as the hot topic. We sold an immense 17,650 newspapers, beating our previous record, and got some influence from the objectives. We unlock Coney Island, which gives us access to more accessories specifically for utility. And as per usual, we get more accessories like this bulletin board, and then take a mission from the Mafia and attempt to expand to Maspeth. Another month, another newspaper waiting to be published. Sadly, with our bulletin board, I had to remove the sign to make space. While I was organizing, our team was hard at work finding news stories while searching for the Mafia tag yet again. After taking a few stories while skipping others, we finally find the one article, but it seems like a dangerous one. We send Ronald Porter, and sadly, for some unknown reason, he got injured and needs to recover for 3 days. Good thing we have Chloe to report on it though. We prioritize it to ensure that it makes it by the end of the week. Then the usual happens. Finding new stories, taking new stories, unlocking more accessories to boost our production, and reorganizing the rooms to place said accessories. By the end of the week, we carefully organize our article to capitalize on the synergies in the missions, which sells us 15,150 copies, which is just below our previous record. But due to neglect and wanting to print as soon as possible, I failed to complete the Maspeth mission, but somehow I managed to at least get one, which unlocked Forest Hill Stadium for us. As per routine, we make deal with the Mafia again and attempt to expand to Tompkinsville, since we already have the tags in our files. We also obtained the sports clipboard since I got some spare influence left. In the next cycle, our telegraphers and journalists are hard at work again, finding news stories and researching them left and right. We find the much needed Mafia tag and some pretty interesting stories with a lot of tags. While our staff were hard at work, I did some decorating, especially with the sports journalist, so I placed some accessories to buff them, from this billboard to the baseball bat and this map. And for the fun of it, I started to place some titles for each department, so it would be easier for me to determine the specialization for each pair of journalists. For the crime journalists, I named them Spiky Sleuths, and for the sports, Cacti Competitors. I tried my best, but I believe those were the best cactus ones I could think of at the moment, so bear with me for the future titles. While searching for new stories, I acquired an election map which buffs the politics skill. I wanted to place it in the middle of the room, but there was no space left. With some extra money, I decided to expand my workforce, buying 2 reporter desks and hire Evelyn Roberts and Bill Fitzgerald to be our political journalists. We also placed the election map and other accessories that can help them. And of course, I decided to name them as well. Desert Debaters. I was kinda proud of that one, not going to lie. And Tech Tumbleweeds. Not cactus theme, but it's from the desert, so let's just say it works. We get some stories before the week ends. We organize our articles, and with all the tags and combos, we get some influence, and we broke our previous sales record with a whopping 22,050 copies sold. We get more involved with the Mafia, and attempt to expand to Canarsie. I didn't spend influence because I wanted to save up another page for our newspaper. This month, nothing interesting happened that much. We get stories, we send people, we get articles. However, I noticed some people were lining up for the toilet, so I just decided to add another new one and end the week there. We lay out our articles and sell a decent amount of 16,350 copies. We almost have the maximum reputation with the Mafia, so we just kept getting more Mafia missions, and for today, we decided to expand to Astoria to unlock more buildings. In addition, we gained enough influence to buy another page module, enabling us to add another page to our newspaper and a space for 3 more articles and another telegraph station to get the stories faster. This month is about expansion. We added the telegraph station and hired Audrey Wallach as our new telegrapher. We add accessories and we are done with our newest Tech Tumbleweeds member. I wanted to add another page module for the printer, but we don't have enough space. Given our money that we saved up, I bought another floor. I placed a 3rd page module and tried to figure out how the connectors work through floors. After multiple failed attempts, I realized that the connectors need a small space when going through floors since they cannot connect directly underneath the modules. It needs to be from side to side or from the top. With that, we were able to fit it neatly in this corner of the building. We then added some walls, fans, acoustic panels, and lights to complete the next floor. And with that expansion, I didn't have any money left, so I decided to expand our workforce later. We continued the week with getting more stories and sending our crew. One of the telegraphers discovered the first golden tag, which was pretty rare and would net us a lot of sales. We immediately sent our team to get that story for our news. By the end of the week, we placed our golden article as the headline, which nets us 15,900. A lot. 15,000 for just that article, which is already close to our personal best. We continued to add more articles, and with the 3rd page, we netted an astounding 38,650 copies, easily covering up the expenses of the expansion. We also unlocked the courthouse and gained some influence. We used that influence to get a listening device for Spikey's loots. I also tried to re-expand to Maspa to fully cover that area. I also get a very interesting mission for the Mafia. And yes, the Mafia is giving us money to print as many lies as possible. As the last mission for the Mafia, we need to put our reputation to the maximum. We must show that we are committed. True lies require commitment indeed. With that in mind, our workforce shall go full deception and fabrication, finding as many lies as we can for some money. We search and search until we find some lies and immediately send our journalists there. By the end of the week, we managed to find 4 lies, which lost us 250 copies. But the Mafia has given us 2,000 for all of them. I can say it was all worth it. We sold only 17,950 copies, and the people were angry at us, but at least we got the money and full trust of the Mafia, right? So now, the reputation of the Mafia will not go any higher, and we could just use them to get some more influence and some pocket change. However, I didn't know that, so I just got another Mafia mission and decided to expand to the East Village to unlock new areas. With the money that we got from Mafia, we had enough funds to expand our workforce. I decided to get a pair of journalists that specialize in societal articles and named them the Succulent Societies. And yes, not very creative. I was all out of creative juices in that recording session. We then hired Edgar Davis and Henrietta Parker to be our new succulents. We added some accessories and water coolers to make their new job as comfortable as possible while being far away from the other staff. The usual week goes by, we find more stories, cancel dangerous or cheap stories, send our team, get surprised by breaking news, get new items, place the new items, work on the typesetting, and layouting the articles to print. We were able to sell 32,300 newspapers while finishing objectives for some influence. This is where I realized that the reputation for the Mafia does not go up anymore. And at the same time, we were able to unlock the new Empire State Building, which gave us a connection to the mayor. We then take his objective to sell 30,000 newspapers and try to expand to West New York. For this, since we need to reach a quota to accomplish the mayor's request, we need to search good stories with a lot of tags as well. As we do our usual search, we hit another snag with a risk. Last time it was a chance of injury or mobster attack, but this time it's a lawsuit. We send Bill to the scene and sadly he wasn't able to get away with it, and we got one lawsuit file. Eleanor was gracious enough to guide us to where to find a lawyer to handle all those pesky lawsuits. We buy the desk needed in the courthouse and hire Matilda to be our lawyer. Lawsuit files in this game will incur a monetary penalty if not processed within the time period allotted. However, once our lawyer is done, we wouldn't have to pay any fines. We get more stories and dodge some more lawsuits, but another problem arose. We are just not lucky enough this week. Public outrage is another risk, and sadly, Ronald made some enemies and caused 6 protesters to show up to our office. And just like other risks, protesters would incur penalties, but I believe these are the worst. Protesters block the entrance of your office, which prevents our journalists to come back from their journey. I believe this is the worst risk since all the other risks can be paid off, while this absolutely blocks the workflow of your entire business. To solve this, we just send our security personnel to shoo away these protesters one by one. It takes some time, but with enough effort, our security team was able to shoo all the protesters, letting our journalists inside. The week ends, and we were lucky enough to get that golden tag as well as some synergies to reach the objectives. We ended the week selling 37,850 newspapers, which was enough to make the mayor happy. I bought some utility accessories such as the file holder, running shoes, and supply tools rack. We got on a mission from the mayor and expand to Port Richmond. We then bought all the utilities that we unlocked, and nothing really happened this week. We got some articles, sent out our journalists, get some more lawsuits, unlocked the golden tags, and researching the breaking news. We arrange our articles to the best of our abilities, and we break our previous record, selling 44,300 copies easily. Our expansion gave us access to the Mariners Harbor Firehouse and the Society bookcase. We take another request from the mayor and expand to Central Park. Since we are getting so rich, I decided to use the funds to do some redecorating and rearranging. I bought the new accessories for the succulent societies and bought a new floor since it was getting cramped. I moved all the utilities on one floor to make it feel less cramped, and I also hired Gladys to be our second security officer. While that was happening, our telegraphers and journalists and typesetters were hard at work getting our stories ready for the week. We ended the week selling a humble 31,000 copies of the Prickly Post. With our expansion to Central Park, we are now able to unlock the ad agency, allowing us to get those sweet ad revenue, which I will explain later. I decided to pick a mafia mission to make things up a bit and expand to Lyndhurst to reach the northwestern districts. Our economy is already getting stable, so I decided to add another department for our journalists, this time focusing on economy. And yes, I called them Thorny Trades. We hired Bennett Lewis and Julia Franklin to be our new Thorny Traders. I also got the sales desk and hired Randy to be our ad guy. We gave him a sales chalkboard, calculator, and a file holder to make his work easier. We are focusing on economy this week, so we get as much as possible. The issue happens again with some new stories, send some journalists, anger some mobsters, kick out said mobsters, and then finish our newspapers. With all the shenanigans, we sold 34,550 newspapers, which was decent. Suddenly, we get this new page after the summary, which is the advertiser market interest. Since we have the ad guy now, this page is to explain how the ad works in this game. Every end of the week, the game tallies how many main tags you have on your finished article. Getting a certain amount of tags will entice some advertisers to reach out to us and give us opportunities to sell some ads on our paper. Once an advertiser likes us, they will give us some ads to research on. Our successful expansion also gave us access to the Harrison Public Library, and I was able to purchase the copy editing desk. We also decided to expand to the Jamaica district and get a mission from the mayor. I bought the copy editing desk by the next month, but I wasn't able to utilize it in this playthrough. But basically, some articles would have the sloppy writing tag, which is caused by employees with low concentration. When this happens, the article would go through the editor, which would eliminate the negative tag altogether. Originally, during this playthrough, I thought it didn't work, since it was not able to remove any negative tags, but it can only remove that one negative tag. I hope that there would be more options in the future to remove the other negative tags though. In addition to the copy editing desk, I decided to add Bennett, another typesetter since we were getting a lot of articles and we needed to speed up production. Today is also the first time I decided to tackle some ads. As you can see, getting ads is similar to researching articles. We send Randy to negotiate the terms, and he will come back with an ad to place in our news garnering us raw funds. Some articles can be doubled down to let our ad guy negotiate a more favorable deal for us. Sadly though, we didn't have enough assemblers and we didn't finish a lot of articles today, including the ads. We were stuck using the old news, which cost us some revenue though. But even with our amazing tags that we got, we sold only 32,100, which is a lot, but it was less than last time. I decided to get another mayor's mission to slowly build up trust and expand to Bayonne. Bayonne? I have no idea. We had a lot of articles that weren't finished, so I decided to add another assembler. I wanted them to be on the same floor, so I did some rearranging again. I placed the spiky sleuths at the top floor. With some space left, I decided to squeeze in the cacti competitors. This gave us a lot of space on the ground floor. So with that, we bought another assembly table and hired Gertrude Hughes to be our new assembler. This should enable us to finish our articles quickly, giving us more choices for our final print. We take more articles, ads, get some lawsuits, and finish layouting and assembling the news. With the addition of a new assembler, we were able to finish an astounding amount of articles. And combined with the news from the previous week, we don't know what to do with all the choices that we have. However, with some K4 layouting, we sold 39,150 copies. Better than a previous week, but still far away from a previous record. The mayor has some shady request for us that we need to print lies. And of course we take it for some influence. We expand to New Arc or New Arc since we already have the tags and we start the next month. We were getting a lot of ad offerings, so I decided to hire Gladys Brown to be our new sales representative. We immediately take 2 ad offerings simultaneously and continue with our weekly shenanigans. Find some news, send a team, engage in some bribery, dodge some lawsuits, and lay out our newspaper for the week. We only sold 31,850 copies. It's not much, but the $5,000 we got from the ad revenue is well worth the wait. I guess we are slowly becoming slaves to ad revenue. With our expansion, we unlock another secret objective provider, namely the High Society, and we decided to try out their secret objective. We also tried to expand to Port Newark to have some easy pickings. The influence we obtained from publishing lies from the neighbor enabled us to acquire the rights to buy another page module, effectively giving us 3 more spaces for our articles. Or maybe, hear me out, more ads. The new page module needed space, so I decided to do some rearranging. I removed the lawyer desk and placed it at the ground floor since there was some space left. Then I moved the accessories and the wall, which gave us just enough room to place the 4th page module. Once we placed the page module, suddenly the game gave us a generator and all the power went out. Apparently, this percentage up here represents how much power we are consuming, and placing the 4th page module was enough to go over our limit. I tried to place a generator, but it was too big to fit anywhere, and I was too lazy to add another floor this month. That and adding another floor is pretty expensive, so I just decided to remove some lights that were not really needed since we were only exceeding the power by a small amount. I decided to focus on getting as many high quality articles since we had another page module to work with. I wanted to break our previous record sales this time. So the usual occurs: telegraphers doing their thing, send out our team, get away from mobsters, fail to get away from the lawyers, get some hot topics, and lay out our news. The additional page helped a lot because we were able to sell an astounding amount of 54,050 copies, sweeping our previous record. It was worth it even though we failed the High Society mission. This time I wanted to expand to the westernmost district, Plainfield, and get the mission from the mayor since I thought that this mission was easier. I also got another telegrapher with the influence I got to discover some news quicker. The money we got from last week was enough to fund our new floor. This also allowed us to place our generator to give us more power for future appliances and accessories. The generator is pretty hot, so I spammed fans and vents to minimize the heat. There was still a lot of space left at the top floor, so I decided to move our telegraphers there since they really don't need to move to other departments to do their job. However, I forgot that I don't have the money, so I decided to take a small loan to afford a toilet. I took some ads afterwards so I can pay the loans immediately, and our news teams are also hard at work to get some articles. With some sweat and blood, we sold 39,500 copies and finished the mayor's objective. Our expansion made us reach the airfield, which gave us discounts to any air transport that our journalists will use for their future travels. I decided to try and take College Point to expand east this time and try to get another High Society mission to make up for our last failure. Thanks to our wonderful team, we got some money and immediately paid our loan back. The week speeds on with the usual news, hot topics, and more lawsuits. However, we still ended up selling 55,350 copies, breaking our previous record just by a little bit. With the influence we got, I decided to try out the elevator. I also spent more influence in getting more accessories and a new wallpaper to play with. I took another mission from the High Society and expanded to Long Island City to complete our central areas. I placed all the new accessories that we got and tried to figure out where to place the elevator. With some relayouting and figuring things out, I just placed the elevator on our 2nd floor, connecting it to our 5th floor. This allows faster access to our journalist and sales team. I was also too lazy to relay out everything, so I just stuck with this and left the stairs as is. I also changed the wallpaper in one of our newsroom to make it more fancy. This week I wanted to play safe and decided to just choose news that don't have any possible negatives. So I skipped all the articles that have a lawsuit, mobster, or any negative tag. I also took the time to appreciate the elevator. And while creating this narration, I realized how fast the elevator moves. Really, people could get injured from this. The week ends and we place our articles as usual and are careful to not forget some ads. We sold only 45,100 copies, but the ads were worth it. With the influence, I got another newspaper, got some discounts, and more accessories. I decided to expand to Mid-Island because it sounds mid, and took another mission from the mayor in the hopes to max out our reputation from him. This week was the usual, and I realized that there were other continents to take news. But I believe those continents were still not available in this version of the early access. As I took some more stories, I finally found out the use for the transportation discount. Those discounts were for these tickets. Some stories would have these tickets that let you pay what type of transportation your journalist would take. The more expensive the transportation means less time to get to the story. And of course, we let them take the plane because we want premium comfort for our team. We decided to take more news items and not engage in bribery this time, and happily ended the week with no problems. We lay out our newspaper carefully because we must fulfill the tag requirements while not allowing the tags that the mayor prohibited. Even with careful planning, my blind self didn't notice that this tag was the same one with the tag that the mayor specifically said not to print. We failed that secret mission, but at least we expanded successfully. And since the mayor was angry with us, I just took another mission from the High Society instead. I got some accessories as well since I had the surplus of influence and decided to expand to Linden. I placed all the accessories I bought previously and continued the week as usual. Find some juicy tea, buy tickets for a journalist, send them to send stories, get some lawsuits while at it, decide to refuse some articles because of mobsters and the police fine. Quickly discovered the hot topic from the breaking news and lay out our article to the best of our abilities. This time I was really careful and we got to sell 50,400 copies, while still finishing all the objectives this time. I wanted to get another secret objective from the mayor, however this time he didn't have anything for us. So I just took the mission from the High Society. And in order to complete the entire central area of New York, I decided to expand to the Hoboken district. We had a lot of surplus cash, so I decided to add another department to our team. I hired Michael O'Connell for this and Ernest Silverman. And the department shall be called... Yeah, not really creative, but it gets the point across, got it? They shall be focused on the entertainment industry and hopefully makes it easier for us to get some stories from those. I place the accessories accordingly and get them to work. We then get a lot of entertainment news. We then engage with some legal bribery, get caught, have some lawsuits, get caught again, and even more lawsuits, send our team again, and anger some protesters. I can say a pretty calm week all things considered. With all the crazy stuff, we didn't have enough articles to finish page 4, and only sold 47,400 copies. But overall, still net positive since we get to finish all the objectives. I was also happy that the mayor has a mission for us, and yes, we need to print propaganda for him. I also decided to re-expand to Plainfield since a non-completed district bothered me the entire time. Next month, the team was hard at work getting some stories to generate propaganda for the mayor. Even with the bribery, angry mobs, and even more bribery, I can say it was successful. We sold a new record of 55,550 perfectly factual newspapers. I wanted to get all the possible stores, so I decided to expand to Bloomfield to get that one area unlocked. And of course, we take up another request from the mayor to maximize our reputation. While planning for some ads, I noticed that one of our telegraphers were not comfortable with their space, so I decided to place a ton of clocks. In order to make it more comfortable? Perfectly reasonable, right? Afterwards, our daily routine started. More stories, more news, and surprisingly, no public outcry. By this time, I really don't look at the specific tags anymore. I see a silver or gold tag, I immediately send my team to get the stories. I continue this until the week ends and I arrange them accordingly. Even with the restrictions from the mission, we blasted past our previous record. We sold 62,850 newspapers and even completed our objectives. We unlocked the Caldwell factory, which gave us access to the rush button. More on that later. We decided to expand to Hackensack to unlock another area and decided to take up on the request of the High Society. But the next few months, I don't really do much aside from fulfilling objectives and sending out people. A little lawsuit here and there, acquire golden tags, get away from the cops, and getting into more lawsuits. By this time, I don't really care if we lose that much money because I already had a lot of spare cash, and I don't plan to expand anytime soon. In the end, I organized articles and sell 62,100 copies, which was close to our previous record. Our expansion gave us access to the Markle paper plant, which allowed us to use our influence to have discounts with our paper deliveries. I went on and took another mission from the High Society and expanded to Laurelton to unlock the eastern areas. With our company brimming with influence, we finally got to unlock the last page module, which could give us another 3 spaces for our articles. Another module unlocked means more rearranging for us. I mainly moved the utilities, stashing most of them to free up some space. After I made enough space for the last page module, I returned most of them except for the one security booth, since I realized that one was enough and sadly had to fire Gladys Jenkins. Even with that, we continued the week as per usual. We got into more shady deals and some hiccups along the way. By the end of the week, I discovered the use of the rush button. This button basically appears at the end of the week and allows you to rush and overwork your employees at the cost of their own comfort and sanity. As you can see, as you press this button, the sanity continuously drains. This will be useful though when you need to pump out those much needed articles. Or just be a dick boss. Even with not many synergies, we still managed to beat our previous record with 63,500 copies. This was due to the help of the 5th page that we just acquired. Our expansion paved way to the Far Rockaway Lighthouse, which allowed us to have a boat discount. With our remaining influence, I decided to buy the last telegraphing station to complete our telegraph team. I got another mission from the High Society and decided to expand northward to the Upper Manhattan to be able to unlock the land transportation discount. I then placed the telegraph station that we just unlocked and hired Vera Franklin as our last tech tumbleweed. Having the 6th telegraph station gave us a lot of stories quickly, which was kinda overwhelming, but I somehow managed. I got greedy though with the hot topic and got a lot of public outrage. And with that, we didn't even finish enough articles, and I failed to utilize the 5th page of our newspaper. We sold a measly amount of 48,900 copies, but it was still a profit. We expand to Riverdale to unlock the land transportation discount next month and get another High Society mission. This week I went on autopilot. Click and drag, look, click and drag, until the week ended. Then luckily no protesters were there, and thus we had more than enough articles, which allowed us to sell 61,700 copies. With our successful expansion again, we unlocked the Yonkers station and got the bus, taxi, and train discount with our influence. Next step was the last area in the eastern side, so we tried to expand to Hillside Park. We get that one last mission from High Society to maximize their reputation. Similar to the previous week, I went on autopilot again, and just sent journalist after journalist after journalist. I didn't care about the lawsuits and expenses anymore as long as we get the stories done and objectives fulfilled. By the end of the week, we got a lot of golden tags and even got enough articles to fulfill the objectives. We finally broke the 70k mark and sold 70,450 copies. In addition, we unlocked the Little Neck Mine to get that coal discount using our influence. The last area that we can unlock is just south of Carteret, so we decided to expand there. I got some accessories since we have some spare influence, and decided to not do any secret objectives since they were already at maximum reputation, and didn't really need help from them anymore. And yes, I get more autopilot mode from here on out. I just send journalists and avoid as many inconveniences as possible. However, any problems that will cost us money, I just ignore them and proceed since I don't really need to spend a lot and we are earning a lot. I decide to have fun and put as many ads as I can and only sold 60,600 copies, but we got a lot of money in the end though. Our successful expansion also gave us access to Woodbridge Farm. We used our influence on them to give us the discount to our food purchases. I decided to expand to Cambria Heights to challenge my team to get those rare tags. Since I set a challenge for our team, I went hard on focusing on finding those specific tags. I even stopped the production of the previous articles to give room to the new stories. I didn't care on getting many articles as long as I finished the objective first, so I skipped any stories that don't have the required tags. I prioritized the needed tags and we got a very good haul this week. While song arranging, we broke our previous record by a mile, selling 83,000 copies, which is more than 20 times the copies we sold on our first newspaper. We really came a long way. By this time we are on the final stretch. I didn't care where to expand. I just clicked on any unclaimed area and decided to expand there. I speed on by the remaining months and it didn't break our all-time record. I didn't know while playing this, but the last month for the early access is December of 1932. After you sell your newspaper for that month, a summary appears showing all our achievements, from our sales to the number of tags, the articles, how many hours we played, and how many hours we paused, which is funny. We also the number of employees, earnings, and reputation. And that's where the early access ends for the game. Well, the story ends here and we get to choose to continue in endless mode if we want to. But this is where the video will end. Looking back, it's amazing to see how far we've come. From a tiny office with a handful of staff to a leading newspaper with a loyal readership. The hard work, the late nights, and the countless cups of coffee I had to drink to make this video happen. It was all worth it. And until next time, this from Prickly Post, and keep making headlines.